Hello, I'm David Ledbetter, and welcome to my first in a series of instructional golf tapes. I'm probably best known for teaching and coaching Nick Faldo and some of the world's great players, but I spend a lot of my time teaching amateurs as well, and I get just as much satisfaction out of seeing an amateur improve his game as a touring professional. So on this tape, I'm going to lead you through an actual lesson format. My student is a 15 handicap golfer who has many of the common swing errors that I see in my everyday teaching. Now obviously he can't have all the errors known to golf, otherwise this tape would run for about 5 hours. But certainly if you put yourself in his shoes, I'm sure you'll find as we go through this program in a step-by-step manner, you will get a proper grasp of the golf swing. Well, good morning, Bill, and welcome.
Hello, David. Nice to see you.
It looks like we're getting a little break in the weather, so hopefully we'll have a good day for a lesson.
Should be a beautiful day.
Why don't you tell me, Bill, a little about your game and what you would like to achieve in golf?
All right. Well, I've been playing golf for about 5 years, and right now I'm playing off a 15 handicap. I've had some lessons in the past and picked up some good tips from different sources, but I feel like I'm a fairly inconsistent player. I hit a lot of good shots, but then I hit some terrible ones as well.
How many times a week do you play?
I play about twice a week.
And do you practice much?
Not that much, but I feel like I would make the time to practice if I knew what to work on.
All right, well, that's what we're going to try to do for you here in this lesson. We're going to give you a good concept of what you should work on, really break your swing down and then put it back together again and show you what you need to work on. Remember, you're not going to get this in one lesson, but certainly I think with a good concept of what you're doing, you can really improve your game. What I'd like you to do for me now, Bill, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to hit a few shots down towards the flag here, and I'm going to put you on video from a few different angles, and then we're going to go inside and analyze it. So just go ahead and hit some shots. Don't worry about me being here. Just relax and go ahead. Looking at video is the ideal way to learn because what you feel and what you do are normally two different things. So we can really analyze it down to the nth degree here and give you an understanding, and we'll probably uncover quite a few myths as well for you.
Well, that sounds terrific.
All right, well, let's get started then. Okay. There's definitely some inconsistencies there, as you described. Some of your shots were hooked, some were pushed. And look at your divot pattern. Some of your divots were actually looking to the right, and some of them you didn't actually take a divot at all. I also looked at the toe of the club and saw quite a few balls. A good golf swing, Bill, has good balance and good rhythm. Now, I see you have some problems in this area, and your swing doesn't flow as it should do. And overall, I would say mechanically, it just looks like your arms are too much in control of your swing. We're now looking at your address position, which we will go into some detail in a few minutes. But I want you to really focus your attention on what the club, the hands, and the arms are doing. In the first move away, we can see how your hands and arms have really left your body and rolled the club back inside. We can see how open the club face is, and also the big gap that's been formed between your arms. As we look at the next position, the club has continued to be rolled away, and the club is on a very flat plane at this point in time. We're now at the top of the backswing, where the club actually is aimed well to the right of the target or across the line. The club face is hanging down in an open position, and your left wrist is also cupped in a concave position. The arms, in actual fact, have lifted from the previous position to get the club to the top. On approaching the position just before impact, where the shaft is parallel to the ground, we can see that the club is approaching the ball on a very inside path. We also see a big gap formed under your left arm. Impact. Bill, here we have a telltale position, what's happened just after impact, and certainly the club face is very closed, and we can see how the right hand and right forearm have really rolled over the left forearm. Well, here's a very common finish position, Bill, that a lot of amateurs have, that very high finish. And the club is really hanging down your back there, and your arms are a long, long way away from your body. We're now going to analyze the swing from face on, and looking at your address position once again, we'll now get into the next position. The 8 o'clock position, the club head has certainly been rolled inside and in a very flat position. And look at the distance between your hands and your body now. Left arm is now parallel, and it's very easy to see how flat a plane the club is on. You can certainly see here, Bill, how much you've got the club across the line and pointed to the right of the target. This is the all-important pre-impact position, and we can see that the club head has been released a little early. That's the old casting or throwing sensation that people talk about. We can also see how jammed your right arm is into your body there, and how low your right arm is and how high your left arm is appearing at this point. Here you are at impact, Bill, and this is a classic position that many amateur golfers get into, where the hands appear behind the club head. I call this position, after you've struck the ball, the 4 o'clock position, and we can certainly see how the hands have rolled over one another in order to square the club face off. Your finish position, Bill, the club is hanging way down your back there, and your arms are very, very high away from your body. Well, Bill, remember, we're only analyzing at this stage. We're not correcting.
Well, it seems like we have quite a bit of work to do, David.
Now, let's have a good look at the top of the backswing position here, Bill. And if we go from the ground up, we can see your left foot is off the ground, your knees are almost touching, and your right leg is very straight. We can also see that your hips look like they've gone back towards the target, and you have a great big turn there, a huge turn. In fact, I think if I tried to do that, I'd be in traction. Certainly with your hips facing the target or leaning towards the target, there's too much weight on your left side at the top of the swing. At impact, you can see how your right foot is flat on the ground and your lower body has, in actual fact, slid forward. And see how tilted your upper body is. You can certainly see how your spine is tilted away from the target. Left shoulder is very high. You can certainly get some back problems from that position, Bill. Look at the position just after impact. Your right foot is still on the ground, very flat-footed there, and still hanging back with a lot of weight on your right side. Look how high your left shoulder is, still in a very tilted position. Now, having a little look at your finish position, you can see how locked your legs look, very stiff down there. Your left leg is absolutely straight, your right knee is not touching your left knee, certainly, and it looks like you've stood right up out of the shot. Now, looking from down the line here, we see how the right leg is very straight, as we observe from face on. Left knee is starting to shoot outwards, and have a look at the left shoulder, how it's going out towards the ball. Very flat shoulder plane at this point. Now we can see the straight right leg, can't we, where the left knee is shot out towards the ball. In your top of the backswing position here, we can certainly see how straight your right leg is and how much your left knee is shot out towards the ball. Notice the gap between your knees. Your shoulder plane, too, is also fairly flat at this point. As you come back into the ball, we can see how flat-footed you are, and your legs look very locked at this point. And look at your shoulders. Look how far right of the target they're aimed. Well, there's a good view of your finish, and you can see how you've stood right up out of the shot there, and you look very tight and tense. This is a very good angle to view your top of the backswing position from, Bill, and it's look how straight your right leg is. It really points it out, and your hips going towards the target certainly can sense a lot of weight on your left side here. Look how your upper body is hanging behind your lower body. Your finished position is going to look a lot different to this bill when we've finished. In analyzing a golf swing bill, one of the things I check on is how you maintain your angles during the swing. Now, the angles you set for yourself at address should be maintained. As you can see, I've drawn an outline around your body, and look how your angles change during your golf swing. Well, we've zoomed up on the grip, and the right hand certainly is not in the correct position. You can see how the thumb is actually resting on the fingers. The left hand doesn't look in a very good position either, but certainly when we get outside we'll be able to check that more closely. You've got a real death grip on the club there, Bill, and your arms look very tight, and that tension goes right through your body. A noticeable feature is how far back you have the ball in your stance, Bill, almost opposite your right foot. It also looks like you've got your head way behind the ball, which has given your shoulders a very tilted look. Looking at your alignment, we have a very common problem here, which is aiming to the right. Look at your club face. That's aimed well to the right. Your feet are a little to the right. Your hips are all right in actual fact, but look at those shoulders. They're really closed, aimed well right of the target. The final thing we look at from this angle, Bill, is your posture. A poor posture creates many, many problems. Look how straight your legs are, and look how far forward your upper body is hanging. This means all your weight is out onto your toes. Well, Bill, that sums up the analysis. What do you think?
Well, David, is there any hope?
Well, everybody says that, but I think we'll be able to get you on the right track. The important thing in the golf swing is getting the body to control the motion of the arms, the hands, and the club. You know, if you think in terms of your body being the engine and all the power generating from this engine through your arms and hands into the golf club, you're going to be a lot more consistent as far as being able to square the club face off and also creating a lot more power in your golf swing. It's a fallacy to think that you have to use your hands and arms to square the face off. Although naturally, because we hold the club in our hands and arms, there's a tendency to feel that we have to pick the club up with our hands or take it away with our hands and hit it with our hands and arms. Well, to a certain extent, sure, we have to understand what the hands and wrists and arms are doing, but they have to complement the motion of the body. So it's, as I term it, it's the dog wagging the tail rather than the tail wagging the dog. So by getting the bigger muscles to control the smaller muscles, you're going to be a lot more consistent. It's like having a club face attached to your navel. The turning of your body should in actual fact square the club face off. We don't need a lot of hands and arms and wrists in order to do this. So that's why good players are more consistent, because the hands and arms are a lot more passive in the golf swing. Now, what I'd like to illustrate here is a situation where my arms and my body are linked together, where they work more in unison. If I get a partially blown up beach ball and place it between my arms here and just make little half swings, you will see how the turning of my body back and forward and the motion of my hands and arms all link up together. We don't want one working independently from the other. So if I hit a couple of shots here, simply taking a little half swing with an iron here, making my movement, it's very easy to keep the ball on line because my hands and arms are reacting to the way my body's moving. Now, certainly I'm moving my weight and turning my body back to the right and through to the left, but I feel that my arms and my body are linked together in a unit. Sure, my wrists work and the club is swinging, but the controlling factor is my body. Very easy to hit the shot on line that way. You know, it's very much the same thing as having a weight on the end of a piece of string. If you think of this as being my body, the string being the club, or my arms and the club together, and the weight being the club head, by me simply swinging and moving my forearm and wrist together, you will see that I create the speed necessary in order to hit a golf ball a long way. So the faster I move my wrist, the faster the weight moves. It also keeps it in the same orbit or path. So very likely to keep the ball, or in this case the weight, on the correct path consistently. So it's like in other sports, you know, when you play tennis, in serving in tennis, you're really using your body. You're not simply standing there and just using your arms. You don't create a lot of power just by using your arms. Or in karate, for instance, moving, you will see, although you appear to be just simply moving your arm, in actual fact, your body is controlling what this is doing. So, if we can learn to get your body moving correctly, watch out. See how far you hit it and how straight you hit it. So our plan of attack is this, Bill. We're going to really work at it in stages. There are 4 stages that I really want you to think about, and I only want you to go on to the next stage once you've got the previous one correct. You see, a lot of people try to do too much at once, so we're really going to break it up a little bit there and make sure that the previous stage is, in fact, absolutely right. So the first stage is making sure you get set up in order to make a good golf swing, in order that your body can move correctly. And that involves us getting your grip, your body position, in other words, your posture, your alignment, the way you line up to your target, and also the ball position, where you put it in relation to your feet. And once we've got that established, we will then get your body moving correctly, understanding how it moves back and forward, how your weight turns, how you create a lot of torque in your golf swing to create power in your shots. We will then, thirdly, blend in the motion of your hands and arms and club. In other words, they have to complement what your body's doing, so we have to understand the positions that they're placed in. And then finally, we're going to link it all together, show you how you can put all this together to have a consistent, repetitive golf swing.
Sounds good.
All right, let's get to it. All right, Bill, let's get your grip correct first of all. So why don't you just take your normal address position for me, and then we'll adjust you from there. All right, so as we saw, certainly when we analyzed inside here, we've got the right hand fairly bunched on the club here. Okay, looks like you've got a hammer in your hand there, Bill. All right, so let's remove the right hand. Okay, now if we open the left hand very slowly, now certainly you've got the club placed very much in the palm, and that really is a problem. I see that time and time again with many golfers, and probably that's the biggest single fault that I see in the grip. In fact, by having it so much in the palm like this, although it might give you a feeling of strength and one hears the myth that it should be a palm grip, well, that's true to a certain extent, but having it so much in the palm as you have, and as many other golfers do, it actually restricts the free motion of the cocking of the wrists. Now, I've devised a little drill for this. Now, if you just simply let your hands hang in front of you, you see how it's turned inward very slightly. Can you see that?
Yeah.
See, it's not turned that way, it's turned this way. So now, if I put the club parallel to your hand position there, just outside of your right foot there. Now you grip it. You put the thumb pretty much down the shaft. You can see if you bring the club in front of you here, let's see where the club is positioned now. Open the hand very slowly. You see much lower down in the palm.
Right in the fingers.
Right. It's certainly partly in the palm. Still, you can see it's up here. And I'm just going to mark this for you with a pen here, just so you have a good idea of where it's positioned. You see, then you won't forget, will you? Right, here we go. That's it. See what sort of artist I am here. Just join that line together. Now if we just open that up there, you can see certainly much more down towards the fingers, although it is partly in the palm. Now it's very important that you get this left hand position correct. I see many players. This is the biggest problem that I have, or I see with the grip, the fact that the left hand is positioned incorrectly. If we close that up again, right, we're now in a position where we've got the left hand correctly established on the club. Now, looking at this, you should be able to see the V between your thumb and your forefinger should point somewhere up towards your right eye.
All right.
Okay. Now, can you sense that?
Yes.
Okay. Feel a little pressure in the last 3 fingers. And the other thing I want you to do is to make sure you can see 2 knuckles on your left hand when you look down. Those 2 knuckles are very important.
All right.
Okay. That's termed what I would call a neutral grip. Okay. We don't want to have the hand too far round. So the big problem, I say, with many golfers is this palm grip. So now you've established the club correctly where, in fact, you can learn to set the club easy enough. One of your big problems in your swing is in your initial start to the swing, and that's primarily caused through the grip. So now if we hold the club straight out in front of us here, making sure this leading edge, the bottom edge of the club, points straight up at the sky, or 12 o'clock, because remember, we want to try to establish a good grip round a square club face.
Right.
Get the club face square and then grip it, you see. So now, all right, now let's put the right hand on there. Now, the right hand is certainly more of a finger grip. It's placed more in the fingers. And I would suggest, as you already have, to have an overlapping grip, okay, where the little finger fits between the first two fingers of your left hand.
Does it just rest on top?
Just rests on top there, so not too tightly. But there are two other grips where the one is the interlocking, where the finger actually links in there, okay, which is used by people with smaller hands. Or otherwise, at times, I will suggest people with very weak hands might use just the two-handed grip, or the baseball grip as it's termed. But any of these grips, whatever you do, you have to have your hands working as a unit. So let's use this overlapping grip, which most of the tour players in actual fact will use. That's the most common one for sure. Now if we put the right hand on there, this V here must look somewhere up towards your chin. Okay, can you see the V here looking up towards your chin there? Right. We want a little gap formed between the first two fingers. We call this the trigger finger. And that will really help that grabby look that you had. Your right hand was on the club there like you're grabbing a hammer. So we want to make sure that the right hand is positioned in a nice neutral position where it's not going to overpower the left hand, you see.
This feels good.
Good. Well, the hands are designed to work as a unit. You know, we've got to let the hands work with the body. So certainly getting a good grip is very important. Now the pressure here, a little pressure right in that, push down on that finger there onto the grip. And so we've got the last three fingers of the left hand. Right. All right. The first finger here. Okay, can you feel that? There we go, that's good. And also a little pressure, push down on this hand onto the thumb. You can see just right under this pad there. Right. Can you feel that there? Okay, so, you know, we don't want to grip the club tightly, we want to relax it. Just one final point, a lot of people say, well, how far down the end should I grip it? Well, you don't want your hand coming off the club, certainly. We want to probably about ½ an inch appearing below the little finger of your left hand there, and that's the ideal position to have it. Now you've got a great grip and you're ready to go. Now that's the address position we pretty much saw on the video when we analysed it a little while ago. And the thing that was very noticeable was how straight your legs are and also how bent forward from the waist you are. Okay, now you don't want to be in a position where you can't move, and that's really what you've done. By sitting up in this position, which, oh, I can't tell you how many golfers do this. It's the biggest fault in the address position, where they bend forward and the weight now is on their toes. You see, if I push you forward, you're almost going to fall on your face there. Right. So we have to get in a position where we're in balance, where our body can move. You also look so tense there that it's very difficult to move your body freely, and this is what it's all about. So get ourselves in a position where the body can move freely. Right, so let's do a little drill here to get your posture position correctly situated, shall we? Okay, now, what I want you to do, I want you to make sure that your left foot isn't turned out too far. That's one thing we saw when we looked at the video. So we're going to have the feet maybe a tad narrower, but the left foot not turned out as much. That's a very restricting position. All right. Okay, now, hold the club straight out in front of you. Keep your arms relaxed here. Okay, now, legs straight at this point. Now, flex your knees and feel the weight go back to the heels. Now, when you look down, how much of your shoes can you see?
About half of them.
That's good. That's very good there. Right, now, looking straight ahead here, just let your arms fall, nice and relaxed, and let your arms just fall there, so the arms are hanging in an extended fashion, right? Now, from here, what I want you to do is actually bend from the hips and stick your rear end out as you do it. So flex your knees there, okay? Now, you should feel that the weight is now on the balls of the feet, should be more underneath you.
It is.
Okay, so you look much more comfortable there. You're in a position where, what I would call balanced. Your weight is sort of on the balls of the feet. Your hands are pretty much hanging underneath your chin. You know, with the longer clubs, your hands will probably get a little further away, and with the shorter clubs, they get a little closer to you. But you're in a position where you are well balanced. Now, as long as we keep those arms relaxed, because we've got to get that tension out of out of your address position there. And you can see here now that by having the arms more relaxed there and adopting that little drill there to get your posture position correct, your shoulders in actual fact are more level. The left shoulder isn't as high as you had it. You had your shoulders very high there, didn't you?
Yes. I
Now,
feel like I'm aimed well to the left.
It probably will feel that. You know, also the ball position might feel a little different to you.
It feels very far forward.
Yes. That's the interesting thing with alignment and ball position. Many people get them wrong because they're in the wrong position. You see at address, their body's in the wrong position, and also the way that they swing forces them to put the ball either back or forward, or they stand in a position just to allow themselves to make some sort of contact with the ball. So you're going to find that things are going to change. Remember I said that in the beginning. You see, you change one thing, other things can change as well. So let's just do a little test here. And this is something, if I just hang the shaft here from the middle of your shoulder, pretty much at right angles there, it goes through your kneecap into the ball of your feet. You see, you're not hanging way out on your toes now. You feel more balanced there?
Very stable.
Good. You should be able to move from your toes to your heels very easily there. A little rocking sensation. Can you feel that?
I can still keep my balance doing
That's
that.
great. Okay, now, the other little thing that I want to mention is that tension factor. We've got to get the tension out of your arms. So now if you give me the club here, just simply clap your hands. Okay, keep your arms nice and relaxed. Now, take your grip here now. Good. And feel your arms are just in the same position as when you were clapping your hands. And that's the way your arms should be positioned at address here. You see, the arms are pretty level here. Pretty level. We don't want to tuck that right arm underneath as you had it. Right. So we've now got the correct posture position. The arms are nice and relaxed. And you're ready to go from there. How does that feel?
It feels different, but it feels good.
Yeah, you want to, you know, these drills, I'll keep saying it through the lesson, but you want to keep doing them and keep doing them until these things become natural, you see. Good, you look great. Now, many players have a problem with alignment. You know, it's a very difficult game when you think about it. We're really sort of aiming almost out of one eye when I say that. You know, we're not facing the target and actually aiming as if we had a bow and arrow or a rifle. What we're really doing is standing to the side of the ball and aiming it out of our left eye. So it is quite a difficult task to get aimed up correctly, especially all parts of our body, you know, our feet, our knees, our hips, our shoulders, and our eyes on line to the target. So what I'd like to do is to show you maybe a little exercise that you want to work on when you're practicing. Now, it's not something you have to do all the time. You know, alignment is one of those things that you can be correct for a time and then without realizing get a little out of position. So it's just something you want to do to check yourself.
Right.
Now, the most important line to establish is your target line. So what I'd like you to do is lay this club down, all right at your target now. So if you can sort of get behind the ball and make sure you get the club right at the target. We've got it about a foot or so behind the ball, because you're actually going to hit shots with that club still in position. So we want to make sure we have a little bit of room between the ball and the end of the club. Now, take this other one, place it your side of the ball, parallel to that one on the ground. Good. Now do the same thing with this club to the outside of the ball.
All right.
Very good. Now, see, you've established sort of a little box effect here. You've got two clubs parallel to your original target line, and you're now in a position where you can start to establish some correct lines at address.
All right.
So, as we described earlier in the grip, we've got to get the club face square. So if you set yourself up, hold the club face out in front of you now, hold the club straight out here. So we've got that club up at 12 o'clock here. Now simply place that club directly behind the ball there, and just look down at your target there. And when you look down at your target, what I suggest you do is sort of turn your eyes under that way, you see, so you can get yourself in a position where your eyes are parallel, because to all intents and purposes, you want to sense that your eyes, your shoulders, your hips, your knees, and your feet are all pretty much parallel to your target line.
All right.
Okay?
Feels as if my right arm is a little bit above my left. Is that
Yes,
okay?
it'll probably feel that way, and that's fine. I say I'm not overly worried about that, because I think you tend to have your arm too tucked into this position here. So if you feel that your right arm is maybe a hair higher than your left, That's fine. So at the very least, get them parallel to one another.
All right.
Okay? Right, how does that feel? Do you think you could get used to that?
I think so. Obviously, I'm aimed correctly by the
Right.
looks of the clubs.
You really have to keep checking this alignment. It's something that it might be okay for a while, but then you've really got to make sure you check it. And I suggest that when you start your practice session, you might put these clubs down, hit some balls initially with that club behind there, so that you've really got an idea of where you are aimed up, because alignment's a funny thing. You feel one day you are aimed correctly and you could be aimed yards off. So it's something that I really work on with the touring professionals, and something they're constantly checking themselves to make sure they are lined up to their target. Let's do this little drill here. We'll start off just simply gripping the club and getting your line up correct, but instead of getting your feet apart, just keep them together. What I want you to do is just move your left foot just a little bit to the left there, so the ball is going to be positioned pretty much opposite your left armpit.
All right.
Okay? Now, just move your right foot to the right and get balance there. Remember, getting your feet, the distance that your feet are apart is just a case of getting good balance there, but I would say the distance between your heels should be a little narrow in your shoulders with a 6-iron, and it'll get progressively wider as the club gets longer. Now, if you just move your right foot further to the right, what does that make the ball appear to do?
It moves a lot more forward in my stance.
Right, but really you haven't actually moved it, had you?
No.
So it's really a visual deception there, okay? So if we can really get yourself set up in this way every single time, you've got very much more chance of being consistent. So get your feet together again. Right, left foot to the left. Always move that first. Right foot to the right. And there we are in a good solid position there, ready to strike the ball consistently. Now, it's true to say that if you slice the ball, I would recommend you bring the ball back a little in your stance, and if you are a hooker of the ball, a severe hooker, to put the ball a little further forward. But I'm not of the opinion that you should move the ball too much depending on the club that you use. So whether you're using a wedge or whether you're using a driver, try to keep the ball opposite that left armpit and then just vary the width of your stance. If you can do that, you've got a very good chance of being consistent, and hey, that's what it's all about. Get it in the same position every time. Having completed the preparation to the golf swing, we're now going to get into the meat of the subject, and that is the body turn or the pivot motion. Simply stated, by getting ourselves set at address in the correct posture position, we need to create an angle. Now this angle, the spine angle as we call it, formed very much from our waist here, or from our belt line, shall we say, that really has to be maintained through the swing. So we turn back, we wind up. Now, I'm going to show you a little drill here to try to get you to picture this. I put my hands across my chest. We call this the crisscross drill. Now I simply turn back here. Now you can see I'm actually moving into my right side. It's what I call a turning weight transfer. Now I'm not just turning around one point, I'm actually moving into my right side. So I'm actually moving away from my center very slightly. So you see in the golf swing there is a slight amount of lateral movement. A little movement to the right as I turn, and then a little movement to the left as I turn in this direction. You see, if we divide the pivot motion, say, into two halves, say the backswing and the movement forward, it's very much a mirror image. You see, as I turn back here and I turn through, I'm maintaining my spine angle, and you can see I turn my shoulders, I've got my chest over my right leg, but this very motion that I'm making here, it's as if I'm coiling and winding up. I'm building up torque in my golf swing, and the actual speed comes from me turning this at speed. You see, this is my engine, as we've already stated. So turning back here and turning through, this is how I create the motions, very much like a hula hoop. So this movement here gets my hands and arms and club moving. So we've really got to try to make sure that we learn to turn here with balance. We can't move all over the place. The legs have to be very secure when we do this. We see in your golf swing there's a lot of wasted motion with your legs. So we need to try to stay fairly firm here. There is some knee movement. Obviously, the left knee starts to move in, and as we move back, the right knee moves in. But the feet and the knees are really stabilizing, or the lower body, in fact, is stabilizing the turning of my trunk. And this is really what we have to try to establish the turning of my chest, my pelvis area, and my hips to a certain extent, turning back and turning through. And if we can do that consistently, you know, it's very much the same example as when I had the weight on a piece of string. We learn to move this consistently, and we're going to find we can create a lot of club head speed, and not only that, but deliver the club face squarely to the ball. So let me take the club from you there and lie that down for a while. Now, just take your address position there and
My new one?
your new one, yes, please. Make sure that you have your left shoulder set a little bit higher, just as you would with a normal setup position. Now, what we're going to try to do here is to show you exactly how your body should move. Now, you have a good angle formed at your belt line here, so now we've got to try to maintain that angle and move back into the right side. Now, when we move back into the right side, remember, we don't just want to turn. See, that's one of the other myths there that we have to try to uncover, the fact that certainly we have a turn, but if you just turn straight away from the ball here, you can see how you would go in the opposite direction, can't you? Right.
It feels like what I used to do.
Exactly. So we have to learn to actually move very slightly to the right there as we start the movement away. Now, to help to illustrate this, I'm going to put a shaft in the ground for you.
All right.
Right, let's see if we can stick this in here. Right, good. Now you see it's just a little away from your right hip there. So as you start your movement, I want you to feel that you're almost going to bump that shaft. That's it. So you bump it there. Now you make your turn. So you see you have a little bit of a lateral movement before you make the turn. Can you feel that?
Yes, I can.
Good. So you see at the top of the backswing here, which is obviously the position that's noted a lot when people are analyzing swings, you can see here now that your back is now to the target and you feel your chest more over your right leg.
Right.
Your legs really aren't doing a whole lot, your knees. They're really pretty much in a stable position. They're reacting to the way that you're turning. You can see all the wasted motion that you had in your swing there. I think you should be dancing rather than playing golf, Bill. So we've got to try to keep your legs a lot more static. They've got to support the turning of your trunk. So to help you to do this, I'm going to put our famous beach ball between your knees there, and that will help to stabilize your lower body.
All right.
Let's put the ball between your knees there. So really making sure that you feel as you move back here that the left shoulder moves under the chin there. We can see how the hips have moved back behind from the original starting point. And what I'm going to do as well, I'm going to put another shaft in to the outside of your left foot. Yes, a little bit of leeway. Now let's work it back there again.